Alright, guys, so we had a pretty successful Super Wildcard weekend. So let's get into the 2021 NFL Playoff Divisional Round. What's up, guys? I'm Tyler Coker, and I'm your host for today's episode of Today with Tyler. I hope you enjoy. Alright, so this week isn't as easy as last week, unfortunately. So we'll start with the ones that I'm a little bit more familiar with, and that'll be the AFC. So for the AFC game between the Bills and the Chiefs, I have the Bills. So this is kind of a little bit of an upset, I guess. The Buffalo Bills have the number one passing defense in the entire NFL. So the Chiefs really need to be able to run the ball, and that's something that they just can't do successfully. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL at running the ball. So I would be very scared if I were the Chiefs that once things start to go bad like they did in the Steelers game, you're not going to be able to have that crazy offensive push, since the Bills do have a much better offense than the Steelers. So if the Bills do manage to get a couple holds early in the game, the Bills will most likely get some points scored, since the Chiefs defense really has kind of been the weak spot all season. So if I were the Chiefs, I really would be a little bit nervous that if you don't get points on the board early, you might not be able to get them on at all, or at least not until a little bit too late and until the Bills have gotten quite a bit of points on the board. So I do have the Bills here. Obviously, with all of the games this week, it won't be surprising if my choices are wrong, because this is a much more evenly balanced, evenly matched week. So I'm excited to see how it goes, and hey, maybe we'll get a new upset. But moving on, we have the Bengals and Titans for our other AFC matchup. Right now I have the Titans because Derrick Henry's coming back, and they're already a very effective rushing offense. And while they didn't seem to be all that powerful without Derrick Henry, they still managed to clutch that number one seed. And that was definitely not the easiest of feats, considering they were then using Donta Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard as their two main backs. So by getting Derrick Henry back, that's going to make a massive threat and probably lighten the secondary. A.J. Brown's back, and Ryan Tannehill's been doing pretty well recently, so I think the Titans do have the ability. Plus, the Bengals are a very hot and cold team, and as we saw against the Raiders, who were an inferior team, if we're going to be completely honest, they lost. They almost lost. The Raiders lost, sorry. But it came down to the last drive, and by coming down to the last drive, it kind of sets a statement that if a team gets ahead early, there's no guarantee that they'll keep that lead, because the Bengals are just kind of able to get snuffed out a bit. So hopefully they don't, and I'd like to see them move on, but right now I do see the Titans, because if Derrick Henry comes back quick, it'll be good. Moving on into the NFC, the first game is the 49ers and Packers. This game is probably the one that's most likely to be a crazy upset, because the Packers are heavily favored, and that's who I have as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers do it again. They're a very strong offensive team, and they really have a lot of momentum going their way. Deebo Samuel's been unstoppable all year. But in the end, I do think Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are a stronger team. They're getting back Jair Alexander, who's a huge deal. They're getting healthier and healthier. David Bakhtiari's finally back, so the O-line won't be as bad. They have a very effective run game, considering they can just pass the ball over your head and then randomly they'll just run it with Dylan. And they're playing in Lambeau. It's going to be cold. It's going to be really cold. It's not going to be the 49ers type of game where it's warm or in a stadium like with Dallas. This is a whole nother ball game. You're fighting against the elements here. So I don't think the 49ers will be able to take it, but don't be surprised if they do. And then it comes into probably the toughest game, which is quite the statement because all these games were kind of difficult, but Rams and Buccaneers. I have trouble betting against Tom Brady because he's proved us wrong time and time again, but I simply don't see them having enough offensive firepower to be able to defeat the Rams. Right now, the Rams look very good. Sean McVay proved that he still is a great coach, and he can defensively scheme right to a team's weaknesses like they did against the Cardinals. Because really, the Cardinals looked horrible the whole time. They just really didn't look like they belonged in the playoffs, even though they were a good team all year until DeAndre Hopkins got hurt. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams pick on the weaknesses that the Buccaneers do have, which are pretty high considering that they have a lot of their playmakers out. Leonard Fournette missing and Chris Godwin missing is really big because those are the two check down targets, and Tom Brady runs through checkdowns. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Buccaneers do pull it off, but right now I will go and bet against Tom Brady and vote for the Rams. So hopefully these turn out well, and I hope you guys enjoy the great football that we have left, and let's go through the divisional round. Thank you for listening.